welcome to Future Print TV. I'm Cara Scott. I'm here with Ross and Keith from Tharstern. Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi, Paris.
We're here at Tharstern. Thank you so much for having us today. Me and Marcus from Future Print have been here with you this morning, and it's a really fantastic facility. Great to meet some of your team as well. One of the things that I definitely want to talk about is the team, is employee engagement, is culture. That's something that's so crucial to Tharstern. Keith, maybe we could start with a bit about your kind of philosophy when it comes to employee engagement, when it comes to your people.
Thanks, Caris. Yeah, so I have been a big champion of the people strategy within Tharstern for quite a number of years now, because like a lot of business leaders, you can be a little bit blinkered to what your team think about the organisation, because they don't know what you know, right? And so after this little bit of a epiphany and realising that perhaps I wasn't doing such a great job after all about looking after the team, I embarked on this strategy. And fundamentally, inclusion, I think, is one of the key things, to make sure that people are included, make sure we communicate well, they know where we're going, they know why we're going. In fact, everybody has to have a purpose. So for us, it's been a real journey to ensure that all of the staff not just are looked after, because satisfaction and happiness is only one metric within an overall engagement, but they have to feel engaged, completely immersed within the business, and share the same vision, the same view of the future that the leaders share. And that's not an easy thing to do, and it's not something that you can do with a flick of a switch overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ross, you've been at Tharstern for a number of years.
Yeah, 18 years now, I think. Yeah, so and it has been a really fascinating journey that we've been through. And I think Keith and the leadership team have done the whole team have done a fantastic job of creating this great culture that we've got at Tharstern. Something that I'm really proud of, and when I'm out engaging with customers and potential customers, can talk very proudly about. And I think one of the things that's really important, it always boils back to that vision, that why. And it's amazing in the podcasts that I host and stuff, almost every conversation always comes back to this as well, and kind of like what your vision, what your why is, what your purpose is. And the importance of that, I think, is that for me as an employee, when you understand what the vision is and identify with the values, it empowers you to make good decisions. It empowers you to make decisions on behalf of the company, knowing that you're making the right decision. Yeah. And that you are trusted to make the right decision. And you know what? If you did it wrong, it's a learning experience. It's a learning opportunity. It's not something you get chastised for or something like that. But it's unlikely that you will, because we know what the values of the business are. So it's almost like we know we don't need to go back to the leadership team on everything, because we know what they would think about it anyway. Yeah. And we're entrusted to do that. So that must make it easier.
Yeah, I mean, trust is a thing. And that's not just, for the leader, they need to trust everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we did quite a bit of work recently as a result of the whole COVID thing to get rid of some of the layers of hierarchy in the organisation, to give more ownership, responsibility, autonomy, which people thrive on, to give that to them, because we need to trust them. So, I as I said, I started this journey quite a number of years ago now, and I had a mentor that came in to advise me, and he pointed out that I was working too much, spending too much time working in the business rather than spending time working on the business. And the problem is, when you're sort of getting involved with every decision, you literally can't see the wood for the trees. Yeah. So he helped me separate from that, and the big part of that was trust. Yeah. And that was to trust my team to go off and do the right thing. But as Ross says, in order for them to do the right thing, they have to know what the right thing ultimately is.
Yeah.
So when we have new starters, we do an induction, as most companies do. And one of the parts of that induction is they are subjected to a best part of a 2-hour presentation from me about the history of the business, but fundamentally that why. So we talk about the values of the organisation. We talk about we have something called an ethos, which I'll talk about in a minute. So we educate them about the ethos, and ultimately that comes back to why. But what does why actually mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean when we say why? To know your why, and because it says something about who you are. You're defined by where you were, but also what is that why? So using an Apple computer says something about who you are, and that's because Apple are very good at defining their why. They're there to empower people to do great stuff with technology. So when I'm delivering this induction, I have a slide which I show up, which is JFK visiting NASA back in the 1960s. I think it was 66, something like that. And this particular visit he was walking around, and he was being introduced to everyone, and he happened upon a janitor, and he said, "What is your role here?" And the janitor turned around to him and said, "I'm helping to put a man on the moon, sir." So he knew what the why was. And that's what my overall objective is, to make sure everybody understands that why. That's the sort of the overarching top level thing.
Yeah.
But then that sort of comes off into all sorts of different minutiae.
Yeah, really interesting. And I think as well, and I think Ross, you touched on this. It's you get to go out then and sell the business to your customers, talk to clients and prospects and customers about the business. People are saving time because you're not, no one's bothering the leadership with every little thing because you know what to do. Just makes good business sense, doesn't it, to have strong employee engagement, as well as it being the right thing to do for your employees. It's strange, isn't it, that perhaps it's not as high on the agenda for some businesses.
I think there's many studies out there that more engaged employees deliver a better customer experience.
Yeah.
Of that, there is literally no doubt. There's an interesting story about Zappos. Have you heard of Zappos? The sort of online shoe retailer. So the person who owned the business, they were really big, hugely into culture of the company, and when they employed somebody new, they would do an induction program, and I think it went on for about a month. Okay, and during that time, their why was absolutely pushed into, this is why we're here. We're all about providing exceptional customer service. That is our USP.
Yeah.
Because online, how do you differentiate yourself from selling a pair of shoes?
Yeah.
Very, very difficult. The only way is with absolutely astonishing customer experience. So they would have a 4-week time where they'd go through an induction process, and then they would be invited back, and he would literally write out a check for $1,000, and he would offer them this check, $1,000, might even be $2,000, and said, "You can keep that and leave. Okay, don't have to work for us. You've been paid up until now, and you can take that with my blessing, or I'll keep the check and you stay working for us." And what he wanted to do was to remove those people that were motivated by the wrong reasons. He wanted people who are motivated by a greater purpose, that really buy into their why. Now, that company went on to be sold to Amazon for $1.2 billion. And that's an important point, so that if you look into it, you'll find that businesses with an employee engagement culture are generally valued higher than companies without one. So as you said, it makes complete business sense, not just operationally on a day-to-day, but in the light of adversity, take the COVID situation. But at the end of the day, when an owner comes to exit from a business, the value that would be placed on his company will be greater.
Yeah. I think it's important to talk about COVID. We've touched on it a bit, but maybe first of all, it's we've talked already about how having that strong company culture already in place really served businesses well during COVID. We can talk a little bit about, first of all, Tharstern's, what you went through, how you reacted in terms of employee engagement, in terms of company culture, when it came to the realization that COVID was a big problem and we were going to have to deal with it.
Well, okay, so communication is key. It's something that we implemented as part of this sort of employee engagement journey. We have a monthly staff newsletter. I do a little piece at the beginning, which I always try and make it about our why, remind people what our vision is, remind people about our ethos, our values. And, sometimes it's a bit humorous, sometimes it's quite long, but I do know it's read. I do know everybody reads that particular section.
Yeah, I've got to say this, like that, when that email comes through, I always purposefully leave it unread and set aside time and I know I'm not the only one, because I actually look forward to when that comes through to set aside time in your RAM and put 15 minutes in my diary to actually just read it and digest it.
Yeah.
It's such a valuable communication.
Yeah, we did a survey actually, I'll come back to the COVID thing. We did a survey with all of the staff just to sort of get their sort of feedback on the various cultural things that we do. Yeah. And also we wanted to understand, talking of COVID, we wanted to understand how it would impact their life. We wanted to make sure that their everything was okay at home. Did they have somewhere to work? Did they have the right equipment? Because at first we were all told it was going to be for sort of 4 or 6 weeks and then we'd all be back to normal again. Well, obviously that didn't happen. And people were sent home and they didn't have the right environment, the right equipment, couldn't have access to all of the tools and the documentation they needed. So, but when it hit, when they sent everybody home, it was really important. First of all, we started to look at what the potential impact would be, and the impact being, what if the wheels fall off the industry and a significant portion of our revenue disappears? If the printing industry is absolutely demolished, businesses go under, and we lose a certain percentage, and we did various sensitivity sort of forecasts. And seriously, we have various scenarios that look like if we did not react, then we could be out of business in less than 12 months, right? Yeah. So what I did was I did a sort of a company briefing and I shared the situation with everybody. Okay, it was a very somber time, but I shared it with everybody. I said, this is what's going on, this is what we're doing. And I also asked everybody if we could put them onto a 4-day week, right? Even though they were all working 5 days effectively, but they were on a 4-day week. They were spreading it out a little bit more. That was before the furlough was announced by the government. And and everybody stepped up. Yeah. Everybody stepped up to do whatever they needed to do. And for me, that epitomises engagement, because it's not just about getting paid overtime, when you need them to do more. It's about doing more for less, as we talked about earlier, doing more when needed, when the chips are down. Yeah. And, so it was important that we communicated. And then, of course, the furlough scheme came in. Our work dried up significantly because we weren't able to go out and deliver our systems. Yeah. People weren't engaging with us, so everything came to a stop. Furlough came in and we held regular briefings with the staff to tell them this is where we are, exactly. And that was so important for those on furlough, because I absolutely felt for them, feeling that I was acutely aware of their mental well-being. Yeah. We have our own mental health champions, and we have sort of provide guidance and signposting to people with conditions. And I was very astutely aware of the fact that they were thinking, I'm useless, what happens at the end? Will I be made redundant? Yeah. So it was a terrible time, and I heard some horror stories from companies who didn't communicate.
Absolutely. That must have been so valuable to still feel part of it. You think back to the beginning of COVID, when none of us knew what was going on with the virus or anything. You know, the last thing you want is then to not know what's going on with your job, or not know what's going on with your future. So yeah, that communication must have been really key.
For a lot of people, that also brings a lot of stress, and I've got to say, in my experience with Tharstern, that wasn't there because the communication was so open, and I was really grateful that we already had created this culture, this pre-COVID, if you will, because that allowed us to just continue and just build on that, but in a different way. It was remote now, and yeah, everyone was like, it's that solidarity of a team, kind of like, well, what do we need to do to collectively to survive and to thrive?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we brought in things like quiz nights, payday quiz nights, and things like that. We had our Christmas party virtually online. We sent out hampers to everybody, and then we did it's important to communicate the where we're going. So we do have these sort of every 6 months. We used to have a face-to-face update. People would come up to the office, and we'd put a bit of an event on. And in the summer, one time we did I mentioned it to you before. We did we called it Tharfest, and we got a marquee put up, and each of the departments were responsible for putting together some sort of party games type thing.
Yeah.
So we had the three-legged race and sack race and egg and spoon race, and we had all sorts of water balloons, and we got caterers in, and we had a barbecue, and it was great fun. So we'd do the presentation to everybody. Each department head would say, this is what we've been doing, this is where we're going, this is how everything's going on. This is even though we do a monthly newsletter, which is a sort of a recap of the next month. These are more strategic sort of updates.
Yeah.
I would always have a piece which I would talk about. We do value awards where the staff vote for their peers based on the company values of helpfulness and integrity and pride and so on. And they would be voted by the staff, and then they would be given a prize at the end of it all. So we do those updates, and of course all that went. The ability to do that disappeared, and I was sort of really concerned that we would lose that culture. And so we still went ahead and did a Christmas update. So we gave an online presentation, and each of the leadership team came on and presented, and then we all went and got changed, and then we came back to Teams. You remember it, don't you? And then everyone got we sent people drinks and
Big hamper, wasn't it?
and it went on till what time in the morning? It was about, I don't know. It was very, very early in the morning. People were still there.
The karaoke at the early hours.
People were doing karaoke, online karaoke, which was great. So it was about solidarity of the team, as you put it, Ross.
Yeah, absolutely, and having that instilled before we went through something like COVID was absolutely
That's
crucial.
where it probably paid its dividends in that sense.
It did. And one of the key things I recommend to anybody wanting to embark on this, first of all, go and get somebody impartial to interview all of your staff and ask them what, make sure they understand it's anonymous, and get that, and be prepared. Be prepared for some ugly truths.
Yeah.
We also implemented some software, some employee engagement software, which periodically does like a pulse survey by email to the staff, asking them questions of different things.
Yeah.
And it presents a report, so we know it's all anonymous, unless people say, no, I don't want it to be anonymous. They can say, I want people to know I wrote this.
Yeah.
And it presents a report, and you get like various indicators. It gives you your overall engagement score, and you can benchmark yourself against all these other industries across the world that use this software, or just specifically in your sector.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud to say, we actually, when benchmark across all industry and those in the IT industry, across every metric, we are above the average across the whole, but that software is invaluable, because you think you've put something great in, and then you get feedback and you think, oh, I thought that was a really good idea.
Yeah.
And it lets you focus on different areas, and our scores were very, very low when we put it in, very low, but now they constantly climbed and have reached the highest that they've ever been post-COVID. So I thought our culture would be battered, but actually it was.
Yeah, and I think the important part of that, Keith, as well, is great advice in terms of surveying your employees and your team, and that technology is in particular is really easy. It's like from my perspective, it takes a minute to quickly answer a few questions and stuff. But what the other key part of that is that you actually act upon that information. Just like any management information, it's only useful to you if you actually digest it, understand it, and do something with it.
Yeah.
And that's the key part that gets the buy-in from people to take time to share and go, actually, if I'm open, if I'm honest and share what I think, I can see that this is affecting change.
Yeah.
A positive change.
And feeling like their feelings and their opinions are valued.
Yeah, I think, and the company is happy to listen and go, actually, we need to do something about this. So an example was, I think one of the survey points was about our physical well-being. Is that, it's a standard question that goes, is that something that is promoted, encouraged, and things like that? And the feedback scores on that was quite low. As would a lot of businesses be.
Yeah.
But then that brought about initiatives to start doing step challenges and getting the activities together, for team activities and encouraging different ways that you can be more physically healthy and taking the time out to do it. And the business was placing an emphasis on that to say it's important to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think that was one of the key things of survey your staff, but then use that information, share it back and act upon it.
Yeah.
And you can't just do this for. It's not about doing it for the staff's benefit. This has to have a real business benefit, which we touched on earlier. So yes, they were there when I needed them, but there's other side benefits which we've never appreciated, and this came up when I was chatting to Marcus before. When we were still in the office, and we started all these different engagement activities. Every time we had something, be like a Halloween fancy dress day, or a Christmas jumper day, or go-karting, or the festival, obviously the marketing team would put it out on social media, and it'd be part of our newsletters and things like that. This is what the team at Tharstern have been up to, and we saw the number of unsolicited applications for employment just soar.
Wow, really?
Absolutely soar through the roof. I remember getting them from places all over the world. California, I just saw your company online. I was searching for something and it looks like a really cool place to work. And I really liked it. Oh, you don't know anything about us.
Yeah.
Because, when we talk about, we discussed in our previous chat about the attracting new people to your business. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
Right? Don't kid yourself. You're not interviewing them these days. They're interviewing you.
Yeah.
If you get as far as an interview, they are interviewing you. So they are looking at your footprint as an organisation before they decide, is that the type of place I want to be a part of? Absolutely. So there's a real business benefit to that, and that's probably one of the biggest.
Yeah, and people, if your employees are engaged and happy where they are, they're going to tell people about that. It affects your whole reputation as somewhere that's a good place to work as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about, from a customer experience, you talk about a net promoter score, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, there's an employee net promoter score, which swings in the system we use. It's from like -100 to +100, and I think ours is in the region of about 42 at the moment, which is fantastic, considering that in order to measure that, when they score you, in these surveys, I think 0 to 6 as a score is considered a detractor. And 7 and 8 is considered neutral and ignored. And the only positive move of that dial is scored 9 and 10. So 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 as a place I would recommend working.
Yeah.
So to have a net promoter score of 42, I'm extremely, extremely proud of. I genuinely am.
We're running low on time, but I just want to think, for businesses that perhaps think our company culture could use a bit of work, but it may seem like a big task. Where to start? I imagine a good place to start is where you started, by actually surveying your employees and as you said, Ross, acting on what they say, I guess.
Well, we put together an actual people strategy.
Yeah.
Right. We said, right, what are we going to do in the short term, the medium term, and the long term? What's our overall objectives? And part of that initial time was to survey, but to get somebody in to do it if you can, somebody sort of, impartial. And from that feedback, work on your communication, put some software in to measure it. You talked about it before. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So put something in to measure it. And your whole leadership team need to be part of it, but you do need, unfortunately, it needs to be culture, has to be driven from the top.
Yeah.
It absolutely has to be driven from the top. So before you might try and, I feel, oh, well, I'll get so and so, they get on with people to put that in. No, it needs to be driven from the top. They're the ones who need to sort of convey, I'm in this with you. So, put a strategy in place and then deliver the strategy. Tell your staff, this is what we are putting in. And they won't believe you. But just do it.
But your conviction of your actions and being consistent, that's when it starts to turn, when people realise, oh, this isn't a temporary thing, this is a permanent thing.
Yeah.
It's suddenly, it's like a compound effect, I think, when you're on that journey of employee engagement, that it's sounding very, very small changes, and then all of a sudden it just
it takes on a life of its own. Absolutely, Be prepared for some ugly truths. And don't give up.
Yeah, fantastic advice. I think that transparency, authenticity, and communication is key. And I think definitely don't give up. And we could keep talking about this for much longer, I'm sure. And I'm sure we'll speak about it again.
Okay.
But Keith and Ross, for now, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thanks, Caris. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for watching.